Hello and welcome to the UBC Master of Data Science program admissions panel discussion. My name is Milad Maymay. I'm the Director of Student Management and Program Operations for the Master of Data Science program, Vancouver campus. And I'll also be the moderator for this talk today. This discussion is all about how to apply to the 3 MDS programs at UBC. We will discuss questions that were submitted by you if you registered for the session in advance. We selected the most frequently asked questions and hope to get through most of them in the next hour. Let's get started. As you can see, we have 3 panelists with us today. And let's meet them now. So maybe you can introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what your role is at MDS. Let's get started with Mika.
Yeah, hey everybody. I'm Mika Silverberg. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Linguistics at UBC and also a teacher in the MDS CL. So that's the Master of Data Science in Computational Linguistics program. Nice to be here.
Thanks, Mika. Tiffany?
Hello, everybody. My name is Tiffany Timbers. I'm an associate professor of teaching in the statistics department here at UBC. And I'm also one of the option co-directors for the Vancouver option for the Master of Data Science program.
Thanks, Tiffany. Jeff?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff Andrews. I'm an associate professor of statistics at UBC Okanagan and principal co-director of the Master of Data Science program over here.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Okay, you're ready for the first question. We'll start with kind of a general question. What are the different factors that people have to pay attention to on when they apply to the Master of Data Science program? And feel free to jump in, anyone who wants to start. So what different things, what different factors do you look for on an application form?
I'm happy to jump in and start at least for the MDS Vancouver option. So first thing we check is that you have all of the minimum requirements, so that you have the minimum GPA as well as that you have the prerequisites. And then after that, we are quite interested in work experience. So what have you done outside of education that has given you some professional experience? And then we're kind of interested in how that professional experience ties in with data and data science. And so not necessarily that you've done data science, but how does that motivate you for wanting to choose our program? If that can you can tell us that story somehow and convince us that you have some that data science training is going to help you get to the next place you'd like to go into your career, and maybe perhaps how your past experience has led you in that direction. That's really helpful for us.
Thanks, Tiffany. Anybody want to add to that?
I could speak briefly about the CL program, so the Computational Linguistics program. I think all of the above, so everything that Tiffany talked about applies to the CL program as well. But we are very excited to see some sort of demonstration of interest in language or natural language processing or computational linguistics. So if you can bring that to your SOI, your statement of interest, that would be great. Of course, we're also interested in people's projects in linguistics or computational linguistics, natural language processing, both in the work life, in the context of maybe university courses, and also just as like a hobby or extracurricular activity. So basically anything you can tell us about your sort of passion and interest for language and language processing is going to help.
Thanks, Mika. Jeff?
Yeah, I don't think there's too much to add beyond what Tiffany mentioned. So I don't think I'll waste time on it. So.
Okay. I just wanted to add, kind of maybe stress something that Tiffany said. just to make sure that people understand. So the work experience that we're looking for, or the experience aside from education that we're looking for, does not have to be data science related. Tiffany said that, but I just wanted to kind of stress that. So if you have work experience that is not data science related, but you think that the MDS program will add to your toolbox and will help you expand or go to the next level in your career, that's completely fine, and that's what we're looking for as well in our program. So variety of backgrounds in our program. And the other things that we also ask you to obviously submit on your application are reference letters. If you're international, or if you're your previous degree is from a university where English was not the main language of instruction, an IELTS and a TOEFL score, we would need that as well. And your personal statement, a letter of intent, those kind of things. Okay.
Maybe I'll add, sorry,
yeah.
Milad, if that's okay. One more great idea to bring up reference letters. So just as a recommendation, it's good to have a mix of reference letters. So it'd be good to have an academic reference letter if possible, as well as a professional reference letter. And if maybe you can, coach your, or direct, maybe not coach, but direct your reference letters to comment on, your career goals and how this aligns with that. That would be helpful for us, I think, because sometimes we get very general letters of references. So if they can tailor it to be as specific as possible to you fitting into this program and how that will help you, that would be that would help strengthen your application.
Yes. Great. Thanks, Tiffany. Okay. So the next question is kind of related to this. So out of these factors, is there anything that you kind of give a higher importance than other factors, or is it more of kind of like a holistic approach to admissions or admissions review?
Sure, I can probably kick us off on that one. Yeah, definitely more of a holistic approach here, where we're looking at sort of all the factors and not a specific weighting in any one direction. So making a strong case in the letter of intent can make up for maybe a slightly lower GPA ranking versus another candidate, something like that. So it really is taking the whole application as a full sort of piece.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Anybody else want to add, or that's good? Oh, Mika, go ahead.
I could just add one thing, which is that we do look for a demonstration of sort of coding ability. It might be your really stellar grade in your introductory programming course. It might be a project that you've done, or maybe it might be work experience or something. But it is very important in the program that, especially at least in the CL program, that you have the sort of programming capacity. So that's something that we do pay attention to.
Yeah. Thanks, Mika, for bringing that up. We'll talk about prerequisites a little bit later on. There was quite a lot of questions about prerequisites, so we'll get into that a little bit further as well later on. The next question, I think we've kind of talked about this, but there was a lot of people asking about this. So the person asks, I come from a non-traditional background, i.e. nutrition, healthcare, political science. Will I be able to apply to the MDS program? So let's get into that a little bit more. Anybody want to start?
Well, I guess I could start and say that we do have students from varied backgrounds in the computational linguistics program, and we have people from health sector, for example. So yes, definitely will be able to apply as long as you've got the prerequisites for applying.
Great. Yeah, and if our staff members in the background can help with this one, we actually, on our website, there is a link, there is a page where we actually say which backgrounds students are coming in from, like what kind of backgrounds they have. So if you can put that link in the chat, then people can check out all the different backgrounds that we accept into our program. So that would be, I think, helpful.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I mean, time It's hard to keep track of time at this point, but I believe it was last year that we had someone that came from a sort of fine arts, was a jazz musician. So it happens all the time.
Yeah, there you go. So the link is in the chat. So we get people from engineering, business, arts, health sciences, obviously the computer science and statistics as well, but all kinds of different backgrounds. Great, thank you. So again, related to this, for previous students who came from disciplines other than computer science and statistics, how did they demonstrate their ability to strive in the program during the application? Can you give us some examples of successful applicants of this kind?
I can comment at least on the application. So as Mika said, programming, so we are a code data science program, not a no-code program. So you will be writing, in the classroom, all of your classes, you'll be writing code to do your data analysis. And so we do look for evidence of being able to program. And so that, for at least the MDS Vancouver program, we primarily take that piece of evidence from your prerequisite course for computer science. So it should be a traditional programming course that was for credit, and you've learned things like writing functions and how to do control flow and iteration, those sorts of things, because we assume that base knowledge level and then we extend on from that. So people who have degrees in other areas, so whether it's in business or in biology, for example, are able to take, one course in either as part of their undergraduate degree or as some sort of course that they take post-graduation to be able to get that prerequisite. And, that's kind of our expected knowledge base for the MDS Vancouver program. And then we build off of it with you. And it can be in any programming language. So you could have taken that course in Java or C. And for example, we teach the R and the Python programming languages. And so we, revisit those ideas, those introductory computer science ideas in the languages that we teach. And then we very quickly extend off of that. So that's what will help you on your application to succeed in the program. If you've never used the languages that we used before, so R or Python, I would advise maybe doing, if you have time in the summer, to do maybe a free online course or tutorial so that you can just get a little bit of exposure, because it is a 10-month accelerated program and we do move pretty quickly.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Yeah, I'll just sort of add a little bit onto that. I mean, the other thing that we're looking for on the applications for somebody who doesn't have the computer science or data science background is, again, the motivation then for applying to the program. So is there sort of evidence beyond the prereqs that they have interest in this area and that this program is going to sort of suit those goals and aspirations?
Great, thank you. There were also a lot of questions about work experience. So how important is work experience for the application?
Yeah, I'll quickly just sort of follow up. I mean, the work experience can be part of that in terms of if there's been some work experience in the data science realm, and it's clear that the applicant wants more training in that direction, and that sort of speaks to the motivations and whatnot. So we certainly factor in, again, in a sort of holistic way, how much work experience, the maturity level of the student, according to reference letters and things like that. It's again, a part of the big picture of why they're applying to the program. Do we have students that come directly out of undergraduate? Absolutely. And a lot of those students do succeed in the program, and that's not a problem either. But it's certainly a factor that we like to look for, some work experience.
Maybe I'll pop in here for the MDS V program. So I think that we weight work experience maybe a bit more heavily, perhaps, or at least we do think it's really important because it creates great motivation and a good place for foundation in the classroom. So we have had people come to our program directly out of undergraduate, but that isn't necessarily what our program was designed for. So our program really was designed for people who have an undergraduate in some discipline. They've gone and done some professional experience and found that they were missing something, in particular, missing some data skills that were going to allow them to do what they wanted to do in that domain or transfer to a more quantitative domain. And so that's really what our program is designed for. So applicants, I do think that applicants who apply that have professional experience have a bit more of maybe a competitive advantage at applying, and it's going to help them in the classroom as well understand why we're doing the things that we're going to do and how these things are going to help them in the work world. So I do think it's really important in your application to emphasize any out of classroom experience that you have, in particular work experience, and in particular like how that connects you to why you want training in data science.
Yeah, for CL, for computational linguistics, we do admit a lot of students who come directly from their undergrad. So work experience can be an important part of sort of demonstrating interest and demonstrating capability, but it is not required per se.
Great. Thank you. Maybe I'll add one thing to it, the other side of the coin. So if you're applying and you have 3, 4, 5, 6 years of data science work experience, then the other side of the coin is that you have to explain to us why this Master of Data Science program will help you. So we don't want to accept anybody in the program that knows everything already. So if you have a lot of work experience on the data science side, then you have to think about why we should accept you into the program. So just the other side of the coin.
Yeah, can I quickly add to that, Milad, because we've had these cases over the last couple of years as well. The same is true if it's not work experience. Yes. We have people that have a fair amount of master's level and PhD training in sort of similar areas. And that's always the question that we have. If it's not addressed in the letter of intent, they're usually not successful applications.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Okay. So there is a question, interesting question here. It says, with my education gap and older age, it says, am I eligible to apply for studying for data science in UBC? Maybe the am I eligible can be changed to should I apply for studying data science at UBC? Can you speak to that? So somebody who has maybe we talked about work experience and maybe having some experience before you apply for the program. So what if there is a gap, between your last degree, whether it's undergrad or master, and now trying to apply for the MDS program? What tips do you have?
Yeah, I think that can be a good thing depending on what that gap is filled with. So if that gap is filled with work experience, that's wonderful, right? You have like 5, 10, 15 years work experience, and you can tell us why, again, in the questions we ask of you in the application, why you want to come back and do some, go back to school, and why you want to enhance your data science skills, then that can be really good. I think that we also are very understanding of like life situations. So I myself have gaps in my work from having a family. And so that's fine. And anytime I've applied for something and I have gaps on my CV, I explain them that, there were reasons why I wasn't working at that time, and they were very important. And I think that all of our programs would be very understanding of important life reasons that are gaps. The one thing to think about, if you're, kind of going back to not am I eligible, but should I apply? So if you have been working, you went to school, you did your programming prerequisite 15 years ago, you've been working in a non-coding, non-data field for 15 years, and now you want to get data science training, I still think that you may want to apply if that's decided what you really want to do. But as you're working on your application, you might want to do some self-learning or self-reminding of some of the programming skills or the math skills that you haven't touched for 15 years, and you probably want to tell us about it. So maybe you want to do an online course, one of those, free. Again, like, I don't think you necessarily need to spend a significant amount of money, but I think that to prepare yourself for the program and to show evidence that you are ready to learn and pick up from some things you haven't done in a very long time, doing something like that would be a nice thing on your application and help make you more competitive.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think that's what I was kind of alluding to. So if there is an gap from your undergraduate master's degree to now, you've taken your prerequisites a long time ago, you probably want to refresh your prerequisite knowledge before you apply to the program, and show us that you have refreshed your knowledge on the application. Great, thank you. So let's talk a little bit about the process. So maybe can you talk a little bit about what the application/admission process looks like for each program?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you mean in terms of how we go about reviewing applications and whatnot?
Yeah, so maybe some timelines, when people,
sure,
how you review, they should expect offers, those kind of things.
Right. So it varies a little bit for us year to year, but I think probably our review process will kick off in earnest in early January. I know the deadline's January 31st, but we already do have quite a few applications that have sort of started the review process. And likely our first set of admissions offers may go out sometime in mid-January or something like that. So we do differ a little bit from the other programs who can speak to when they're doing reviews and when the sort of initial set of offers may go out, but probably mid-January is the earliest that we would have any go out, and they're then sort of a long running process from that point forward as we get acceptances or refusals and we try to fill out our cohort.
Yeah, so you kind of do rolling admissions, you send out offers.
Yeah, a little bit. And that has again varied from year to year. There have been years where we waited until after the deadline to even start the process, but I think we didn't like how long the process ran some of those times, so we like to get ahead of it now.
Thanks, Jeff. How about for CL, Mika?
Yeah, it looks very similar to us in CL as well. So we're actually currently reviewing our first sort of batch of applications, and I think we're going to be sending out some early offers in mid-January as well. And then we're just going to continue doing this throughout the spring, essentially.
Great.
And Milad, I might actually defer to you to comment on this because you're our master organizer for this.
Yeah, so I'll give a little bit longer answer. So the way we do it at Vancouver, and I think it's quite similar with Okanagan and CL, we basically we start the process maybe before the deadline has, January 31st, but we basically take, every week, we take about 100 applications randomly, we review them, send out offers. Go to the next week, take another 100 randomly, send out offers. And then by the time we've kind of finished the whole process, it's sometimes even in April, maybe even May, depending on how many offers are not accepted and how many people withdraw and those kind of things. So it's a long process. It doesn't mean that the sooner you submit your application, the sooner you will hear back from us, because those 100 people that we take, those 100 applications that we take is kind of randomly taken from the pool of applicants. So submitting your application early does not mean that you will hear back from us sooner. I would say just make sure you submit your best application. If that takes all the way up to the deadline, submit it by the deadline on the deadline date, but try to give us your best application.
Yeah, and I agree on those points, Milad. The earlier submissions may get reviewed earlier in some of our cases, but of course, eventually we get to the point where we're 2 weeks out from the deadline. It doesn't make much of a difference at that point because they're all going to start streaming in, and we get backlogged.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, can you talk a little bit about how competitive the programs are?
The Master of Data Science Vancouver option is what I can comment on, and it is quite competitive. So we accept about, maybe 5 to 10% of applicants who apply to the program.
Yeah, our percentage, I guess, is a little bit higher now. I think in terms of offers, at least, we're at about 14% from completed applications, which means every single piece of the application was good and sent along from the College of Graduate Studies here at the Okanagan. So that's the admissions rate, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and for CL, I can say, I mean, unfortunately, I don't have the exact number, but I can say that it is a selective process. But yeah, I don't know the exact number.
Great, thank you. So I think in general, we can say it's quite competitive. Couple of questions that probably have really quick answers, but people are asking them. Does applying to more than one program affect the decision, application decision? No.
Not here, no.
You can apply for one program, you can apply for 3 programs. Admissions committees kind of work on, independently. So if you get an offer from one, doesn't mean that you can't get an offer from another one. So it's up to you. And then the second kind of quick question is it possible to kind of transfer from one program to another?
Generally, no. We have, I think, only in the history of the programs, I think I only know of one case where that has happened. Or actually, I don't even think it was happened. There was one ask, and we thoroughly reviewed that case and decided that it wasn't, that we couldn't say yes to it. The programs are independent, and yeah, we have policies around them about like how somebody could ask. You can look for that on our we have a separate MDS Vancouver GitHub website that maybe Vanessa could share our policies link to. But yeah, generally, no, there's no transfer between programs.
Great. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to prerequisites. Just so everybody is on the same page, what are the prerequisites? Shall I take that one? Okay, so we talked quite at length about programming. So an entry or introductory programming course. We would like you to have a linear algebra course or a calculus course and a statistics or probability course. And these are all introductory. They have to be 4 credit. They have to be taken at a college or university. You have to have gotten credits for it, which means they have to show up on a transcript. So we cannot accept on free online courses that you didn't get a grade for as the prerequisites. We talked about this, we do accept them as refresher courses. So let's say you have the prerequisite and you do a refresher programming course or statistics course or something like that online. You can tell us about it and you can say, I've done a refresher, but also possess the 4 credit prerequisite course for which I have gotten a grade. The prerequisite do not have to be part of your undergrad program. Like you can do a undergrad degree and then a couple of years later, do the prerequisite at a different college or university. That's all fine as long as you have them. Anybody want to add anything to that? Okay, great. So the next question is, what if I'm missing one?
I mean, I can jump in for MDS Vancouver. I think that because of the competitive nature of our applicant pool, that if you are missing one and you are not doing anything to address that, then you won't have a competitive application. So I think that, if you are missing something and there is a possibility that now you could take a 4 credit course somewhere and you really want to apply in this cycle, then you should be taking that and tell us about that in your application. I don't know about the timing. if we can accept that, we probably would need to see the grade from it, or at least the grade from a significant part of the course. And the rest of your application would have to be very compelling. So if you are missing 1 or 2 prerequisites, it might be good to consider, like, maybe this isn't your year to apply. Maybe this year you take the prerequisites and you apply again next year. That's at least for MDSV.
Yep, agreed on the Okanagan side. I mean, again, with a competitive program, if you're missing one of the prereqs, that's going to be hard to overcome. I think we've maybe once done a conditional offer when somebody was currently enrolled in one of the prereqs, and conditional on a satisfactory grade from that. So it has happened, but it's not common for us.
Yeah, for CL, we've sometimes made conditional offers if the applicant is very promising and they are taking the course, just as you said, Jeff. But as a general rule, this doesn't happen.
Great.
And maybe I'll just kind of, I missed saying the rationale, and this is to set our students up for success. So if you don't have the prerequisites, it's very unlikely you'll successfully complete the program. And that's like a waste of your time and energy and money. And we don't want to see that happen. So we have the prerequisites in place so that you can come into the program and be set up for success.
Great, thank you. So kind of an extension of this, what if I have low grades in 1 or more of the prerequisites?
Yeah, I mean, for CL, we do look at the grades in the prerequisites, and we do consider those quite heavily, or they weigh in on our decision, just because it is such an intensive program that you do need all these skills that you get in the prerequisites courses. But if you don't have sort of good enough grades, there's always the option to retake that course at another university, maybe just demonstrate that you can get a better grade. So if you have replaced that course with another one and get a great grade in that one, then we will of course be very happy. So it's totally okay.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, partially the question is of timelines there, right? If this is something that was taken 6 years ago and the grade wasn't stellar, but there's other evidence that they're clearly being successful in the areas related to the prereq, we can look past some of those types of issues. But the other option is to upgrade it if it's going to stick out like a sore thumb, and also address it in the letter of intent as to why you think we should be looking past any deficits there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like the application is there for you to tell us why we should be accepted into the program. So even if it's not the prerequisites, maybe you have just a term where you have lower grades. Maybe something happened in your personal life, and that's what caused you to have lower grades. Just explain that in the application. We look at that and we understand. Tiffany, I think, said it before. Life happens, so if you can explain it to us, that's completely fine with us. You can also, for example, if you have let's say you have a lower grade in your programming prerequisite and you took it 5-6 years ago, but since then you've been working as a computer programmer and you've been successful, your references show that you've been a successful computer programmer, you can put that in your application. You can say, yes, my grade was lower, but since then I've been working as a programmer and I've been successful, so I think that should make up for the lower grade. So explain it to us. Okay. A little bit more about the computer science or programming experience. How much experience, computer science experience, do you look for in applicants? Is the prerequisite, the bare minimum of the prerequisite, enough to be successful in the program?
On the Okanagan side, I would basically just say yes, the prereq is enough.
Same here in Vancouver. Again, this program wasn't designed for computer science majors. It wasn't designed for statistics majors. It was designed for people who have likely have a major in something else, and they want to add data science skills to their skill set. And so, yeah, that's why we have designed, we need some background, but we don't need you to be a computer science major to be accepted into the program, nor to succeed in the program.
Yeah, that's it. I don't really have anything to add.
Great. Okay, let's move on from prerequisites. There's a question here about GPA. What are the GPA requirements?
I mean, I believe probably on our website somewhere it states what the minimums are for the different programs. Off the top of my head, I don't know them. But again, the way that we do the review process, it's not just a strict ranking on GPA or anything like that. We're again looking across work experience, letter of intent, why somebody wants to come into the program, what they're going to gain out of it. We're trying to sort of, in some cases, read between the lines on a lot of that stuff, and the less reading between the lines we have to do, the better chances you've got.
Well said. Thanks, Jeff. Okay. We also, there's some questions about what if my GPA is not that great, those kind of things. And I think we addressed that already. So it's the same as the prerequisites, the grades for the prerequisites. Okay, let's talk about the letter of intent and the personal statement questions that Vancouver has. What constitutes a stellar letter of intent or personal statement? What is your advice for writing these letters?
My advice for those letters and for answering our Vancouver questions is to make it about your specific case. And not make it general. We get a lot of data science. There's many, data is everywhere. We need data to answer all the questions in the world that are important. We need data for evidence-based decisions. And all those things are maybe true, but they're not, specific to you. So, what are your career goals? And how is getting data training going to help you? Why do you care about those career goals? What makes that important and impactful to you, to your organization, your community, your family? We want to know more about you, I think, than data science in general. We know a lot about data science in general. So we're trying to understand you and how data science training is going to help you get to your next career goal. So like if you And the thing, it's important to have career goals. And so, your career goals might change after you join the program. We're not going to hold you to these, but it's good to have a goal. Tell us about your goal and how data science training is going to get there. And how did your past inform your goal, and in past inform how you're missing this data science training to meet your goal?
Yeah, I'll just jump in there that the word missing is important. A lot of times we get these personal statements or people answer the questions and they say, I've done this, and I know this, and I know this programming language, and I've done this project. And then we're thinking, well, why do you want to take the program then? But the person that in their statement addresses a gap in their knowledge and says that because I've done this, I understand that there's this gap, and that's why I want to take the program. That's a lot more useful for us when we're reading applications. Yeah, Mika or Jeff, anything to add?
Yeah, for CL, I mean, there are 3 programs. Only one of them teaches you computational linguistics and natural language processing. And we want to know why you're applying to the MDS CL program specifically. So that needs to be evident from your SOI.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Let's talk a little bit more about references. I know in the beginning we addressed that. So what kind of references are ideal? And this person says, would including a reference from a retail manager from a part-time job be appropriate and useful, for example?
I guess that specific case, the question is, what other options are there? If that's the work experience, and then of course that's useful. If there's other work experience that you want to stress more, then maybe lean that direction. But In general, we've got, depending on how much work experience you've got and how long it is since you've been in academia, I think the rules are slightly different, and I don't want to state what they are in case I get them wrong. But we're looking for potentially some academic references and professional references in these applications, and those two things generally speak to different qualities, I guess, of the applicant.
Yeah. Mika, you want to say
I
something?
also think references from people who know you well are going to be more impactful. So if you have a professor who you worked with very closely, or if you have someone at work who is sort of works with you all the time, that's going to be much more impactful than if it's a professor who you just took their course like a couple of years ago and you never even spoke to them or something.
Yeah. And that actually brings me to the next question, and maybe I just address it instead of asking it. So there's a question about, I graduated 10, 15 years ago, and so I haven't kept in touch with my professors, so how can I submit an academic reference? So in that case, it's okay. If we don't have an academic reference, we will understand. So as Mika was saying, submit reference letters from people that know you best and that know you most recently, that can talk about your skill set as recently as possible. However, if you've taken a course somewhere in these 10, 15 years after graduation, or have done some refreshers and those kind of things, and you have a instructor or a professor that can talk about your academics, that would be useful. So think about that as well. They don't necessarily have to be your undergrad professors, because if it's a long time ago, that's okay. So a couple of really quick questions. Is MDS recognized as a full master's degree program in Canada, since it's only under a 12-month program in duration?
Yes, it is.
Easy, quick. How strict are the IELTS TOEFL requirements?
I think they are fairly strict. Like data science, it's really important to communicate, and I understand that data science happens in other languages. It's not just happening in English, but the language of instruction and the language that you're going to be assessed and evaluated on at this program is in English. And so we do have to meet those minimum requirements. Again, otherwise you probably won't be successful in the program. And so we have these minimum requirements to assure that everybody who we do accept into the program will be successful.
Yes. Thank you. Some questions about post-grad work permits. And I don't know, maybe I should answer those. Is that okay? Yeah. So what happens is that after you graduate, you will get a letter of completion. On the letter of completion, we state that this is an accelerated program, that most master's degree programs at UBC are usually 18 months to 2 years, but this is an accelerated program. And then you can use that letter to apply for a postgrad work permit. It will be up to CIC, Citizenship and Immigration Canada, and the visa officer to decide how long they would like to give you a work permit for. So that's not in our control. We have in the past, again, this is in the past, doesn't mean that in the future will be the same. In the past, a lot of our students have been able to get a longer postgrad work permit, but we've also had students that have gotten a 1-year postgrad work permit. So it's really not for us to kind of address those questions. It really depends on the visa officer. Having said that, we'll try to help you as much as we can to get you prepared to apply for a postgrad work permit. Okay. Let's talk about finances and scholarships. So what scholarships are available?
I can start on the Okanagan. We've got several, let's say, entrance scholarships that we do on a competitive basis. You don't have to state that you're applying for them or anything else. We basically, during the admissions process, we've gotten better about trying to offer them along with the offer letter. So in many cases, you'll know if you've been offered that through that. And in some cases, we still have some funds left over and do them sort of as we head into September as well.
So you don't have to apply for them specifically. You just submit your application and they're automatically assessed and given to people.
Exactly.
Mika, you want to talk about CL?
Should probably add one more thing, that we also do have some bursaries for domestic students as well. And there's a separate process for that. So that does have to be applied for, and that's once you're in the program, I believe.
Yeah, I think the system, it's very similar for CL as well. So I don't think you need to apply. We tend to give out scholarship based on sort of academic merit and also financial need, but it varies from year to year. So.
And then for the Master of Data Science Vancouver program, we have a long list of scholarships that are listed on the website. I think, Vanessa, maybe you could drop the link in the chat. So we have, general scholarships for that are purely based on merit, that everybody is, competitive for. But then we have some scholarships for underrepresented groups, so such as Indigenous students or Black students or persons of color from the world's least 50 developed countries, from the list from the United Nations, as well as we're partnered with the UBC MasterCard Foundation Scholars Program.
Yeah, those are all explained on that web page that Vanessa posted a link. By the way, the CL and Okanagan scholarships are listed there as well. And we also have the bursaries for domestic students. So for the scholarships, you don't have to apply. We'll automatically consider you for those. For the bursary, you do have to apply. You have to also have a student loan, a government student loan. And then if there's an unmet need on your government student loan, then you can also apply for the UBC bursary, MDS bursary program. And so that's more needs-based, whereas the scholarships are more merit-based. The MasterCard Foundation scholarship is needs-based. There is the whole process you have to follow. And if you go on our website, you can find the link and link out to the MasterCard Foundation Scholars web page in order to find out what you have to do in order to be eligible for the MasterCard Foundation Scholarship. Okay, let's move on. We have about 8 minutes left. Let's move on to some kind of general other questions. This is like specific to the Okanagan campus, I think. I hear that there is an amount of housing reserved for MDS students. Can you confirm this? How many rooms for the UBC Okanagan campus? Do you know anything about that, Jeff?
A little bit. So I can confirm that is the case. I couldn't give you an exact number on it. And there is a pretty hard deadline for us to get the requests in. So somebody behind the scenes, Crystal, may be able to speak to this with some more specifics. But yes, such a program exists. Okay.
Sounds good. Get in touch with the UBC Okanagan program office, MDS program office. The next question is, how does the Okanagan campus differ from the Vancouver campus, or maybe the programs differ?
Sure. So we're a smaller campus in the, I guess, interior or almost southern interior. I forget exactly how we're classified. And in terms of the cohort structure in the MDS program, we're a smaller cohort size. The courses, there's a fair amount of overlap, and we have the shared governance of the programs, but we do have some aspects that differ. So we have an optimization course because we have a very strong research program in optimization here in the math department. I don't know. I think that touches on the major differences. So I think our cohort structure for this coming year will be capped at about 60. That would be we can't go over because that's our room size type of things.
And then maybe I'll just contrast with the Vancouver campus. So we are a larger cohort or section size. So we're about 100 students for our groups that we're going to group. Next year, we will have 2 of such groups, but they'll be, we'll have one section of 100 and another section of 100. They will be separate groups. They'll be their own group. And then for the first term, we do have the computational linguistic students are in the classroom with the Vancouver students. And then in term 2, the computational linguistic students are focused on working with their linguistics faculty, and our Vancouver students are focused on working with our faculty. And even though we are going to have 200 roughly students next year, you're going to have the same teacher ratio. So you'll have your own each section will have their own teaching team with their own student ratios, keeping those the same. Vancouver is also a bigger city. So there are, advantages and disadvantages with that. So there's probably maybe more housing challenges in Vancouver, and maybe more housing cost in Vancouver than there might be in Okanagan. We do have some programs at UBC to help with housing, but it's just something to know about. And then, things that come with a big city versus things that come with Kelowna is still a big city for British Columbia, but Vancouver is, the biggest city in British Columbia. So there are some differences from what you would, be interested, how you would be interested in like spending your in the classroom life.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so we only have 4 more minutes left. So maybe I'll ask a question about what typically, or actually, you know what? I have a question for CL as well. Bika, what kind of tips do you have for somebody who has an English or linguistics degree, but doesn't have a computer science background?
You mean for applying or for sort of succeeding? Yeah, for applying. I think make sure that you got your prerequisite courses, that you've got good grades in your prerequisite courses. And yeah, I mean, if you have any coding projects that you did in the context of a course, that's going to be helpful as well. But we don't necessarily require any of that background. So I think sort of purely arts background is great as long as you've got your prerequisite courses.
Great. Thanks, Mika. And then finally, what do students typically do after graduation?
So many things. Lots of students end up working under like a junior data scientist position. If students have more of a computational background coming in or more data experience coming in, they might end up going into a senior data scientist position afterwards. We also have students going into ML engineering, machine learning engineering afterwards. And then even, data analyst or business analyst positions sometimes are, they're labeled as that, but they're actually doing real data science work. Like it's this, the job description doesn't always match, like what are the things you're actually doing. So the students are most of the students we do surveys afterwards to track this. Most of the students are definitely applying the skills that they learn in the Master Data Science program, but they're wearing different labeled hats. And if you draw a Venn diagram, there is like a subset of core data science skills that they learn in the program that they're using, but they're all maybe using different aspects of it.
How about for CL, Mika?
Yeah, so most of our students actually do end up working with natural language processing. So they are basically doing exactly what they studied in the program. They're doing this in many different fields. So we have people in sort of tech companies. We have people in also healthcare, IT, because you can do these things in sort of many different sectors. And yeah, one sort of fun fact is that of our last year's cohort, 8 of them were actually hired by Meta to do natural language processing and prompt engineering specifically. So yeah, it's one of the big employers.
Jeff, do you have anything to add to that?
No, my comment was going to be that I don't know that there is a typically, but I agree and echo Tiffany's comments there. We've had a fair amount of variety, even from the most recent cohort across, sports fields. We've done a fair amount of government agencies as well, so we're all over the place between across industries and government and whatnot.
Yeah, what we always do an entry survey when students come in, and we ask them about their expectations and what companies they're interested in. And it's interesting to see that a lot of students think that they have to go into the tech field, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Teslas, those kind of companies. But then when we do the exit survey and the alumni surveys, we find out that the students are actually working in all kinds of different fields. So having the expectation that you're only going to be working in the tech field is kind of the wrong expectation. There is data science positions available across all industries, all kind of fields. So I think that's one of the good things about data science. I would like to thank Mika, Jeff, and Tiffany, and everyone who worked in the background for answering questions and being at this webinar.